Hi, everybody. This is our workshop on how to talk to teachers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Zarkey. I am the NYSPTA Education Coordinator, as well as a teacher of 19 years in the Oceanside School District down on Long Island. I'm also the mother of a kindergartner and a second grader.
And I'm Amy Heisick. I am the New York State PTA Wellness Coordinator. I am also a parent and also a teacher. I teach high school biology just north of Syracuse, New York, at CNS High School. And I am the mom of an 11-year-old sixth grader. So first and foremost, if this is a workshop and a sort of tips and tricks about how to strengthen the relationship between parents and teachers and how to strengthen the communication between school and home, the first and foremost rule is be kind. Especially right now in this season of COVID, in this season of everything feeling like it's so uncertain, so out of control. Everyone right now feels like everything is out of our control. Teachers feel like we don't have a lot of control over what happens in our classrooms. Parents feel like they don't have a lot of control about their kids being able or not being able to go to school and who's in quarantine and who's not. And so right now, it feels like everybody is angry all the time at everybody. And so with this targetless environment, teachers end up being the scapegoat for a lot of that. And so right now, as a teacher and also as a parent, what we need to make sure that we are doing in the communication that we have is that we are being kind. There's the old adage of you get more flies with honey than vinegar absolutely holds true, especially in situations like this. So realize that the pressure that you're feeling as a parent and being out of control in this situation, many of the teachers that your children have are parents themselves. So that amount of pressure that we feel for our own families and our own children, we're dealing with that, but we're also dealing with the added pressure of we now have a room of 30 kids or maybe multiple classes times 30 kids with all of those children and the needs of all those kids and the needs of all of the parents. And so compound all of that pressure and all of that stress and now have parents that are very aggressive in conversations and well, you must do and this must happen and you're going to do this. That aggression compounded with all of the rest of the out of control is really putting a lot of pressure on teachers. It's putting a lot of pressure on parents. So part of this communication and in strengthening these lines of communication, a little patience, a little grace, and a little recognition that for all the things that you think are in teachers' control, they're really not. Just knowing all of that and realizing that this is a situation that needs an added amount of empathy and an added amount of grace will actually go a lot further in the communication and in strengthening those lines of communication than you think.
Absolutely. One of the big things to remember when talking to teachers, especially in this season of COVID, is that teachers really do love their jobs very passionately and they love working with kids. If they didn't, they wouldn't be in this field. So, some of the first tips that we could provide for you before picking up the phone, before writing that email, assume positive intent. When a teacher reaches out to you, they're not reaching out from a place of malice. They genuinely want to see your child succeed. So even if the message at first does not seem to be positive because of something going on in the classroom, we're always approaching this from a very loving, positive place. Ask before accusing. Again, we're very much in a time where everyone has a hot head and everybody wants to react before thinking through what the result of that overreaction will be. So ask about the situation before jumping the gun right to accusing. And as always, in any situation, especially those going on in schools, realize that there are always two sides to every story. There's the side that you hear from your child, the side that you're hearing from the adult reaching out to you, and the truth right there, somewhere in the middle. You know, the world is not black or white. There's always shades of gray. And as we all know, our own interpretations of situations, especially right now, could color how we interpret an email, how we interpret a phone call. So think think before you react, and realize that there are going to be two sides to every story that you have to break through in order to start to figure out a solution in the best interest of your child.
Absolutely. And we all, as parents, want to protect our children and want to make sure that we are doing the best for them. Your teachers want that too. And so that's really the idea. If a teacher does reach out and tell you that they are seeing specific behaviors in class, that they're sharing concerns about academic performance or social concerns, please believe them. We don't reach out with no reason to. We make phone calls home, we make contact home because we're seeing things that, with the years of experience we've had in the classroom, could lead to more serious concerns down the road. And most teachers are going to reach out when they start to see some of these behaviors or when they start to see some of these warning signs. We don't reach out with, with malice, with malintent. We really do want your kids to succeed. We want them to be able to be better humans when they leave our classrooms at the end of the year than when they came in. We want them to grow and mature as humans and have better social skills and better ability to communicate and to navigate their own social situations and their own academic priorities. So if a teacher reaches out and says, hey, I'm concerned about X, Y, or Z, take it at face value. The immediate instinct and the gut reaction is, someone is attacking my child, I have to defend them. But hit the pause button on the emotional reaction, if at all possible, and see what it is that the teacher is concerned about. Because we all know that our children behave differently at home with us than they do out in public. And so the behavior that the teacher might be seeing in a classroom might be very different from what we see at home. And so if there is that specific behavior, please and if you need clarification, ask for it. But again, it's the ask and not accuse. If you're seeing something, could you give me more details? I understand that you're concerned about this. Could you give me some more idea what's really going on, or what's really happening that you're concerned about, so that I have a clearer picture? Because recognize that we as parents are not in the classrooms with our children or with their teachers. So the teacher is the adult who's trained to see all of these things, to be able to bring them to our attention. So believe them, ask for more clarification if you need it, but do it with that. Try to stave off the emotional reaction of, I need to defend my kid and this teacher is attacking my kid. It's probably not that. Most teachers don't go into this job to attack children. We want to help children. That's why we become teachers in the first place. So realize that it's coming out of a place of love and concern. Ask for clarification if you need it, but we really do care about your children.
And that's a beautiful segue into the next segment of our workshop right here, for sure. My two children, my kindergartner and my second grader, both have special needs. So as a parent, I'm starting to really learn a lot more, and I'm about navigating this side of education. Whenever I get a phone call from school during the school day from one of their buildings, I see the number on my phone, on my watch. I kind of suck in my teeth, brace myself for the worst. And then I pick up the phone, take a breath, and most of the time it's not the worst. Most of the time it's coming from a place of concern, data that I need from the classroom in order to better understand some of the things my children are going through in the school during the school day, to better support their needs. So I can very much relate to how we're already coming in feeling like our backs are up against the wall as parents, because we're constantly feeling judged, like we did something wrong, and that is why our child has XYZ service, why XYZ is happening to them. I already touched upon this, but that impending sense of despair whenever the school contacts us, we feel it as parents, no matter what side of the spectrum our children are on, but especially as special needs children and special needs parents, we feel like, oh my gosh, something else tragic is going on with our child that's going to completely upend our lives once again. And we often feel like we're failing as parents because our child isn't the neurotypical cookie cutter student, whether it's academically, socially, emotionally, all of those things. So we're more apt to, get right to the jugular whenever we are having conversations with school, often leading with our emotions because these are our babies and we want to see them succeed in a neurotypical world, even though they are not neurotypical. So we have to remember, again, believe the teachers or the psychologists or the support staff when they say your child is struggling, your child had a bad day. We need that information as special education parents in order to help get our child over that hump to the next step. It could lead to doors opening for our children. It's very important to foster great relationships, not just with your child's teachers, but with the support staff, psychologists, even district administration. I'm thinking of my daughter, and I often say that my son kind of paved the way to make life easier in school for my daughter who's in kindergarten. And if I did not foster those relationships, and unfortunately, as a parent, have some really tough, passionate, emotional conversations where we did snipe at each other a little bit, but we all kind of came to our senses. The path has been so much clearer for my little one to get the services that she needs because my son kind of helped me pave the way in fostering those relationships. And just the other day, I had to ask for some more things for my daughter, and the answer, resounding yes across the board, because I have those relationships established. So just keep those things in mind when you are having really difficult conversations about what your child needs, whether it's increased needs, decreased needs throughout their educational journey. I know mine is just beginning.
But really that conversation too about the need for support changes as kids mature and as they grow as students, as they grow as people. Sometimes the level of support that they need or the type of support that they need is going to change. And so having those established lines of communication are huge. Talking about what your child needs can be daunting, and it can be emotional, and it can be challenging for both teachers and for parents. So we do want to help your child succeed. We absolutely want to see them grow, but realize too that this is that difficult balance for us as well, is to balance the needs of all of the kids in our classes at all of the times and still cover content, and also document that we're covering the content and that we're providing the support for each individual child when you have a whole bunch that are in the room that are all different and that all need something different. We really are doing the best that we can to juggle. Sometimes I feel in my classroom like, the plate jugglers, like they spin the plates and they got to run, but this one's kind of going, so you got to go spin that one because it's kind of running out of steam and you got to go spin. That's sort of what we feel at some point. We are doing our best to make sure that all of the needs of our students are met, that your children are met, and talking about that, having those conversations, because they can be so emotional. You are so emotionally invested in your children, and we are so emotionally invested in our students. When emotions run high like that, we really do have to take a step back, take a deep breath, and recognize, assume that positive intent. We really do want your kids to succeed. We really have to go into this sort of the right way.
So this leads us to the strategies portion of our workshop here for sure. So how do we approach these myriad difficult conversations that we're going to have K through 12 with our child's teachers? Again, just to reiterate, we can't say this enough. Teachers always want what is best for your child. You're not always going to agree with what is best for your child, because you're going to see what is best for your child at home is a lot different from what is best for your child when you've got 23, 24, sometimes me as a music educator, I've got 70, 80 personalities in the room at once. What is best for that one personality in a sea of personalities at school is going to look a lot different from your family nucleus at home. This is one that I struggle with sometimes as a parent. Try not to go in with a hot head. Very, very, very easy to approach any conversation with a hot head because we feel like it is a personal attack. Sometimes it's okay to let that email kind of fester in your inbox for a couple of hours while you strategize. Sometimes it's okay to not return the phone call until the next day when you've had time to calm down and get advice from other friends who may have gone through this with their own children, maybe teacher friends as well. I know that sometimes as a teacher, I need to sit with an email in my inbox and say, I am in receipt of your email. I need some time to find out the answer to your question. I didn't forget about you. You definitely try not to go into these things with a hot head.
The other thing, Megan, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. For a response too, if you are going to email a teacher back, I do this when I email sometimes parents. I'll remove any of the identifying information about the student, but I will draft an email and I will send it to a colleague and say, okay, this is the text of the email with the kids' names and identifying information blanked out, but say, how would you interpret this? So it's not always a bad idea, especially if it is going to be a difficult conversation or a difficult topic. Have somebody else pre-read your email or proofread your email and say, what does this feel like to you? Because again, having that text conversation is very different. Tone and inflection is sometimes implied, especially when it's a difficult conversation, when it's not there. So having somebody else read your response sometimes before you send it, drafting the email. I'm always famous for this too. I'll draft an email, but I won't put anybody in the subject line so I don't accidentally send it. I'll draft it. I'll let it sit on my computer overnight. I'll look at it the next morning and say, do I still want to send this? Or are there things that I need to change? So both of those may sort of turn down the temperature on the hot head part of things a little bit, but those are a couple strategies that might work too.
Absolutely. I was just actually discussing this about a week ago with the brand new teacher that I'm sharing a classroom with. I've been asking her to show me her responses to difficult emails so that I can help her tweak it from both the seasoned veteran teacher side and the mom side as well. Be prepared and willing to compromise. And especially I find this a lot as a parent of two special needs children. I know that what I want for my kids is not always in their best interests, that it might actually hurt them more than help them. Listen to what the teachers, support staff, principal, administration has to offer you and try to find what's in the middle of that as the best possible course of action for your child. It might not necessarily work perfectly, and you might have to go back to the drawing board, but you have to be willing to compromise. The second that you come in and say, this is what I want, and I am an impassable wall, and I will not accept anything less than what I want on this detailed list, you're already coming in with at a disadvantage there. So just be prepared. Keep an open mind, again, along the same lines. Sometimes what you think is the best course of action is not going to be the best course of action for your child in that particular class. I often find this as a special area teacher, as a music teacher, especially for those parents who may not have the ensemble experience from their youth. They may not see, what I want for my child is not going to be what benefits the orchestra, if that's my vein, as a whole. So I have to be prepared to, trust the teacher and see it his or her way in order for my child to be successful in the end. And a big thing that Amy just touched upon in our conversation about emails is that you should take notes about what you want to make sure to cover in the conversation, especially when I'm still very emotional about a particular situation going on with one of my children. And even as a teacher myself, if I read an email or see a phone call and I know it's going to be difficult, I pull out a pad, pen and paper. I start making notes about that child or monitor that situation before I pick up the phone. So this way I know, okay, I need to make sure that the parent knows this is going on to give them more information as well. And as a parent, I need to write down what I'm seeing from my child, what I'm getting from my child, before I have a conversation, before I reply to that email or remind text. So very important tip right there.
Absolutely. So in terms of some difficult topics and kind of how to approach those, grades and grading is a big one. I teach at the high school level, so this is very much a thing. So I have sophomores in high school. So this is when colleges are starting to look at grades, and grades are really important because for college things and for beyond high school things. It's the same sort of strategy that you would use about any conversation. Ask first, don't accuse. In a lot of cases, there is an explanation. Different teachers have different grading practices within their own classrooms. And at least at the local level, at least where I teach, we as teachers are allowed to set our own grading practices. So some teachers accept late work, some don't. Some take off late points and it's this much per day, others don't. Some allow students to make up work or retake quizzes, some don't. And so part of that conversation is it should be a seeking of information. And then once you have that information, you make a plan with your child to say, okay, well, this is how things are going to work in this teacher's classroom. Knowing this now, and especially at this time of the year, this first marking period, the beginning of the school year, grades are just starting to come out. This is the time to make the plan, but with your child to kind of know, okay, this is how we're going to have to do this for this teacher. This is how we're going to have to do things. If there are grades or grading conversations with the teacher and arguments about grades or a conflict about what is going on with a grade or a particular assignment or missing assignments, it could be a question of how, what things can I do as a parent to be able to support my child? What options does my child have to make up work, to hand in missing assignments? Is there the ability to do that? And this is where I sometimes get in trouble with some colleagues. In my classroom, it's a mastery learning environment. So I teach high school biology, but I believe that it's more important that my students learn the information than when they learn the information. It's not just special needs children that are not neurotypical. There's no one that's actually neurotypical. Neurotypical is a myth. Everyone learns differently. Everyone learns at different speeds. Everyone learns at different times, and everybody needs different supports in order to learn anything. And so you might be really, really good in math and not so good in social studies, or really great at English and not so great at science. That doesn't mean that that there's anything wrong with you. That's just how your brain works and what supports that you need. So the way that my classroom works, I don't take off late points for late work ever. Kids get multiple attempts to be able to show me that they've learned the information. There's also no extra credit in my room because kids can go back and do the regular credit as many times as they want to show me that they've learned the information. So in my class, that's a really easy conversation about missing assignments and grades because they still have the ability to do it. There's still accountability. I have to have grades in at the end of a quarter, but at least for me, this is an option. So that may be an option that you ask for and say, what is your policy on retakes or redos or late work or missing assignments? Can they do them or not? Can they do retakes or not? And how would that work? Some teachers are not open to that possibility, but others might be, and they may not have considered the option before, but that's part of how you can approach that conversation and say, especially for a teacher who says maybe they don't want to do those. Okay, well, if it's, is it important for my child to learn the information and demonstrate that they've learned it? If they learn it a week after the other kid, it may just be that they needed a little bit of extra time to do that. So can they have another opportunity to show you that they've learned the material? Going into it with that sort of focus on the conversation of my child learned the material, they want to demonstrate that to you. Is there a way that we could make that happen? And is there a way that their grade could reflect the higher level of learning? Not about assignments and not about turning in papers. It's how can my child's grade reflect what they have learned and how much they have learned or how much they have improved their learning. If you kind of focus it on that rather than on the number and on the assignment grade, maybe you'll find that a teacher is more receptive to that or being open to allowing some of those things to be able to improve a grade if the conversation shifts to the learning is more important than the number.
Definitely. I'm in my second year of teaching at the middle school level, and it's really opened my eyes to some of these more difficult conversations to that parents and teachers have. I spent 17 years at the elementary level teaching elementary orchestra. So, learning how to navigate these conversations for myself as a teacher as well has been a big learning curve, but an important one. One of the big, hot, difficult topics that we have to discuss as teachers with parents are behavior concerns. Going back to some of what we discussed prior or in our workshop, just keep a lot of those things in mind. We can't see as parents what the teachers are experiencing with our child. Again, what you see in your home of your child's behavior isn't necessarily what teachers are seeing with the different personalities at play in their classrooms. Believe what they're saying. When we reach out to you with behavior concerns, we absolutely want to see your child succeed and become a lifelong learner, a lifelong we're thinking ahead to career, to college, and some of the behaviors that we may see in the classroom will make it more difficult for your child if they continue amping up at the rate that they are. So when we have to discuss behavior concerns, we're very future thinking, future minded when we're reaching out to you. Sometimes strategies that you use at home with your child for behavior correction are good for us to know, because and sometimes you may have certain consequences at home for certain behaviors that we're not inside of your home seeing you use. It's good for us to know. So when your child is having a difficult day from the behavioral side of things, we can kind of quietly whisper, hey, talk to your child, hey, talk to mom, I know you're working for this at home. If I have to reach out to mom about your behavior today, this is going to be the consequence at home and in the classroom. So it's good for us to know as well. Subject unique situations. Again, as somebody who does not teach one of the core four, as I like to call them, we come up against some very unique situations in music. Things that I thought of off the top of my head. In a not so COVID time, this is the time of year where we start to recommend and find out about selection of some of our students who are accepted into honors festivals, starting NYSSMA solo and ensemble prep. And sometimes you may not understand that your very talented child did not necessarily get selected for the opportunity that we thought as teachers, and you definitely think as parents that they deserve. Sometimes this is a situation completely out of our control. So we have to have these difficult conversations at this time of year. Yeah, unfortunately, your child was not accepted into an all county, an area all state, all Eastern, all national situation. It has nothing to do with the talent level of the child. It's a situation out of our control. So we feel very emotional about those because we see that our child is hurting, that they did not get that opportunity. There are other factors at play. Ensemble seating, sometimes we have to seat children in our bands and orchestras in a way where it benefits the entire section, the entire orchestra, and it may not be that first chair that your child was striving for. Listen to us as we give you strategies for how in the future they can achieve that accomplishment. NYSSMA scores, NYSSMA levels are a very touchy subject at times for sure, where you may not understand that NYSSMA is not in a vacuum. They may have done a level 4 last year, but that does not necessarily mean they move up to level 5. Sometimes they need to stay on a level 4 to master some more of the skills that they need for those upper levels. Again, putting your child in a situation where they are more apt to succeed. We're seeing your child in that ensemble and lesson setting on a day to day or every other day basis. So we can see, yeah, your child would be best served staying on this level another year, really mastering those skills so that when they jump up to that level 5, level 6, they're going to have a more successful, more positive experience. The one other thing that I thought of is a very difficult topic. We're starting to transition from the fall to winter athletic seasons. That can be a very difficult conversation for our coaches to have when they have to cut your child from the team. Again, it may not necessarily be that your child lacks the skills to play at the JV varsity level. It may just be that the particular talent pool that year is so high that your child would be best served staying another year in JV and not making that jump up to varsity as a sophomore. So listen to the coaches. They have your child's best interests and often safety in mind too when they're making these very, very difficult decisions.
Absolutely. The safety part is a huge thing, especially with
Yes.
sports. So a real quick do's and don'ts list, and I think that a lot of this that we've covered, but just as a quick reminder, remember that there are two sides to every story, at least two sides. There's what your child tells you and how your child interprets what is going on in the classroom. There's us as teachers and our forward thinking, our goal of having your child be, a more mature and a more capable human at the end of our year. Remember that the truth is somewhere in between both of those stories. Realize that teachers are limited in some of the control and some of the power we have to make decisions for your child or for our classroom. There are things that we are not able to change. There are things that we are not able to do not have the freedom to do or to change. And so recognize that some of the things that you may want us to be able to do, we are not free to make those decisions. And prepare for all possibilities throughout the conversation. Going in with that open mind instead of going in with a hot head or a preconceived notion of, well, this is how this conversation is going to go. When you get into the conversation, it may be a completely different situation. Once you hear that other side of the story, it may change how you view the conversation at all. And it may end up being a much more productive conversation if you go into it with that open mind and with not the preconceived notion of this is what's going to happen. Be prepared for lots of different possibilities depending on what information is presented.
And some of the don'ts, again, we've covered these. Don't yell, scream, or threaten. That is a one-way ticket to completely ruining the relationship that you have or are about to have. Don't fight with the people you need on your side the most. You are going to need your child's teachers, support staff, administration to be in your corner for your child when you cannot physically be in the school building. So the second that you start a fight, that's going to sully the relationship right then and there. Do not assume that the teacher is against you or your child. There are many situations where you are going to go in and feel like your child is never going to succeed in that teacher's classroom because you are convinced that the teacher hates your child. That's not the case. Again, sometimes there are things outside of our control that you have to hear and see that maybe altering certain decisions. And the biggest one on both sides, both as a teacher, both as a parent, don't take anything personally. This is when we are reaching out to you as teachers, this is not a personal affront to your child or to you as a parent. Remember that we are going in with what we are seeing from our day-to-day interactions in the school with your child and the other players in the classroom. Do not take what they are saying about your child personally. Go in with an open mind and a willingness to see that other side to help make the crucial decisions that are going to benefit your child in the long run.
Absolutely. And so if you ever need additional resources or support, don't hesitate to contact either of us. Megan is the education coordinator, is the school support. I'm the wellness coordinator. So the mental health connection is mine. We're both teachers and we're both parents. So either education at nyspta.org or wellness at nyspta.org. We are both at your disposal. If there's a situation you just want to talk through and you want a teacher perspective before you go to your child's teacher, that's a way we can help as well. Have a quick conversation on the phone, shoot us an email, we'll set up a time for a conversation and we'll kind of walk you through, hey, here's how I would see it as a teacher. Here's a suggestion that I would make as a teacher, or here's a strategy that I would use that might get you a little bit more of what you want. If you go in with this idea or saying this might get you something. We are more than happy to have those conversations if you would like them.
Absolutely. We hope that you enjoyed our time together, got some useful strategies. And as Amy said, feel free to reach out to us at any time with any teacher conversation needs or anything having to do with education or wellness in New York State. We're more than happy to assist you.
So thank you so much for spending time with us today, and let us know if you need help. Thanks.
Thanks.